Welcome to Julien Mascarade's podcast talk. Today, we're joined by David Franklin, a UCLA MBA graduate, seasoned CEO, and EVP of multiple successfully acquired companies. Whether navigating a private equity acquisition or scaling a zero-revenue startup to a 6- and 7-figure business, David's systems-first approach doesn't just solve problems, it reshapes what's possible. Let's give a warm welcome to David Franklin. Thank you so much for coming. It's just an honor to have you. When you go to college, you're like, man, I have no clue what I'm going to do when I graduate. Yeah. And we keep going to college, and then we graduate, and then we're like, we're still in the same place. So how did you get from going to college to then ultimately getting into your career path?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty interesting story, I think, because I went into college thinking that I was going to become a physician. There was no doubt about it.
Me too. I wanted to become a dentist.
Yeah, exactly. So I went into school and I had a course work that basically allowed me over the 4 years to have one elective all 4 years. So I tried to cram everything in and was either going to become a physician, but wanted to do that through kind of a biomedical engineering lens.
Oh, wow.
And so I kind of did that. And then throughout kind of my undergrad career, multiple physicians kind of talked me out of becoming a physician. And so I kind of listened to their advice. At undergrad, a bunch of guys were going into investment banking. I had no idea what that was. And so,
well, that sounds pretty, intoxicating. Everybody gets that investment banking bug at one point.
So I actually got a couple interviews in New York, but ultimately didn't end up getting that gig. Another really good buddy of mine was going to be a banker, and he wanted to go to San Francisco. And so I was like, I'll go to San Francisco. I've always wanted to go to the West Coast. And so I was able to get a job in consulting at Accenture.
Okay. And so tell me a little bit about that. Tell me how that happened. What did that give you in regards to your growth as an individual?
Yeah. So I think consulting is an amazing way for people to start their career. Mm-hmm. It kind of teaches you how to think. We as engineers were already kind of taught how to think, but being a consultant allows you to learn how to use decks and learn how to use Excel and all these tools that I use all the time, right?
Literally.
So maybe not as many decks as
kind of like the entrepreneur starter kit.
Yeah, I would say 100%. So maybe not as many decks now, but definitely a lot of Excel, and just kind of a way to think through problems. And I was lucky enough to kind of get pulled into more of a strategy group at Accenture, and did some really cool work at Pacific Gas and Electric.
Cool.
And for a while. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And then I finally got to travel, and I was going to Chicago, going to Cleveland actually for another mining client out there. So went from being a physician to being a consultant to working at a utility to then a mining company in Cleveland.
Right. And how do you get the experience? Because I always feel like consultants, I ask them what they do and they say, I've talked with a couple different consultants and they tell me, I don't even know.
Yeah.
So how did you get the experience? Because a lot of these people, you're working with companies that have had people on there for 15, 20 years in that sector doing that exact thing, maybe whether it's lead gen, whether it's, complex problem solving.
Yeah.
How do you go in and then make that exterior lens that you have and then input it as a consultant?
It's a really great question. And I asked the same question. I remember vividly being in the San Francisco office and said, okay, hey, we're doing this new project. And David, we need you over at the client, in an hour. I'm like, and I didn't even have a notebook. I was just I thought I was so good. I could just memorize everything. Oh, yeah. And so, learned very quickly that I needed a notebook to take notes. And then, once we got broken down into smaller groups, it was very evident that we had some individuals in that room that had been in that role for 20 plus years.
Right.
And I remember them vividly asking me, what are you going to teach me about this that I don't already know?
And this was on a pitch, right? So you're pitching them.
We're pitching.
Okay.
We're slightly beyond the pitch at this point. Now we're into the actual
So it's been
work.
Closed. Yeah. You guys are already doing scope of work and focusing on the exact problem.
Exactly. So, and I just remember answering and being coached basically hey, you know about this way more than I do.
Tell me a little bit about the problem. Give me about the scope of work.
So basically,
if you can.
Yeah. No.
NDAs,
Yeah, no, this was a while ago. So it was basically we were coming in to kind of renegotiate supply contracts for the utility.
Okay.
How can we save them money? Because they've been doing the same thing forever. And, I was new to sourcing. I'm a brand new consultant, new to consulting, new to sourcing.
Right.
And so this gentleman, I remember vividly saying, what the hell are you going to teach me that I don't already know? And I go, that's a really good question.
These darn kids.
Yeah.
That's literally the visual I get when I hear that.
I mean, 1,000% it was that. And so I just went back to kind of what I had been taught and said, no, hey, look, it's not just me. I'm kind of pulling the force of like us collectively.
Right.
And we know how to put things together, draw on our knowledge base, and leverage the experience of others, because I'm not going to be running a point. I had that to go on. I was a junior guy.
Got it.
But I'm going to be leveraging all these other people who have done all these same sourcing contracts and saved people millions and millions of dollars. And so, that was really fun. And then it ended up being, in order to hit our target, we had about a $4 or $5 million delta. And I, as an analyst, was able to close that delta.
Oh, that's cool.
With renegotiating all the cell phone contracts. So that was kind of my big win.
You found a way to reduce their spend by renegotiating the company cell phone contracts?
Yeah, exactly. So think about a utility. A utility has a ton of phones sitting in drawers for emergencies.
Oh.
And so they were paying full rate on all these phones that were never.
And they weren't using them.
Wow.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Pay per minute instead of unlimited. Oh, that's really cool. And how did you find that? I mean, that takes a very data analytical and focused mind to find something like that. Did you just go over all of their like profit loss statement and just like say, oh, this is what is, ringing out to me. We can save money on this.
We basically got the invoices electronically, right? From the cell phone carrier. And we just ran a couple quick pivots and was like, hey, this is what effectively we were paying per minute because everything is on a monthly plan. And if we switch, like there's a couple $1 million of savings there. So,
got it. So how did you find that though? Because I feel like that's very fascinating to be able to find that you're overspending in that specific budget category.
One of the things I like to do is like, again, like what we got taught and what I've continued to do is like really just pivot on data. So like pretty large data sets in Excel, I'm pretty comfortable with like manipulating those and pivoting those and trying to figure out like, hey, what is the effective rate per minute? Like, if we switch to one from the other, what's the savings there? So I'm a big data fan, and that's proven very helpful throughout my career.
That's so cool. So tell me a little bit about DaVita and your transition to this new role. Like, how did that even come up? Did it just you meet somebody at a bar?
Funny you should say that. No. I didn't meet anyone at a bar. Okay. In fact, I remember vividly standing. I remember deciding it was, once again, gray and dark and cold in San Francisco. And I remember there being quite a long line at the bar to talk to a lady that was in the bar. And I was like, I'm out of here. So, picked up my bags and moved to Los Angeles, moved into, a house on the Strand that had a whole bunch of other guys in it.
Oh, that's cool. How did you find that? Was it just some buddies from college or?
Oh, I went on Craigslist and had to interview and apply. I was joining a fraternity.
Oh, wow.
Getting into the house basically. And so I won the lotto, and a couple days later, I remember there was dolphins swimming by the ocean as I was brushing my teeth on.
Oh, that's so sick.
Deck, and if you sneeze too hard, it would wobble. Right, the house is not in great shape.
Okay, so now you've gotten into this new role. Tell me about it. Tell me, because you were working directly with the CEO, right?
Yeah. So the office of the CEO. So there was a gentleman who hired me, who was really kind of the right hand of the CEO in his office, and so I was lucky enough to apply and got the gig and went to DaVita, and it was an awesome experience because I was at a large corporation as a young kid, and everyone kind of knew that we worked for the strategy team. And so when I asked for things, things actually got
done nice and quick. Yeah.
So it was a very surreal experience, and I think very unfair experience. But
how was it unfair?
Because I think a lot of when you don't have the support of the CEO in a very large organization, it's really hard to get things done and accomplished.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So was it just that the piecemealing, it was very difficult because it was such a large organization, the message would get whitewashed, or there wouldn't be any messages from upper management and you felt like you were just kind of floating?
No, I think everyone's doing what they're, trying to do their best. But once you kind of go down a couple of layers, everyone's got conflicting priorities. So
100%.
So who's, really responsible for my next couple hours of work, right? And then when they know that like it's going back up to the CEO, then they kind of reprioritize that and get things done and get things accomplished. So from that perspective, I think it was a little bit unfair, but really fun for me. So
I mean, I felt that at a big company. I felt like there was sometimes some disconnects, and like a lot of the times management would say, or upper management would say, this is what we want accomplished, and they have these big goals, and then it would be very hard to dissect those and try to translate them into actionable steps for the individuals that were on the ground level trying to get things done.
Yeah.
And, you know, from what I've seen, at least, I think that there's so much value in trying to understand all of the different processes within the stack.
Yes.
You know, and it's very hard to find that. It's very hard to find a company that will do that. Amazon does it very well. My fiance, Shannon, was actually interviewing with Amazon.
Yeah.
And it just seems like everybody understands every single role that's oriented throughout the firm.
Yeah.
And throughout the hiring process, they have this whole thing where they have like 3 to 5 different rounds where individual from a different sector in the firm interviews you, and they ask you these complex topics and questions. And I feel like that's fascinating. But have you seen that a lot in a lot of the companies that you've also hired for? Like,
yes,
that's been something you've tried to accomplish?
So I think it's a really interesting, not dichotomy, but a very interesting gradient of the ability for companies to do that. Mm-hmm. It gets harder and harder to do that the smaller and smaller you are. But the smaller and smaller you are, like everyone kind of knows what's going on anyway, right? To your point, I've heard great things about Amazon's and their hiring and the process through that. And like, I wish I could replicate that. But when you're doing like startup world and have smaller companies, it's really hard to get that accomplished. So, kudos to them for being able, you know, to do that and support that. And I think it's fantastic. But again, there's an art, you know, so why Elon talks about, you know, cutting out middle management and like doing all these other things is because how does that message get delivered into a tactical set of plans that everyone's kind of marching to? And there's a real skill set in being able to find people that can do that.
So I remember reading when I was doing some research in regards to what you've done, that in one of the firms that you were part of, I think it was DCF Ventures LLC.
Yeah.
That was something that you guys tried to do, is take information from a business standpoint and try to communicate it to anybody who's a scientist or other individuals within the org, and try to structure everything in a very interesting manner. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about that and how you got into doing and how that's impacted.
So it's kind of a funny story, I think, but like, you know, really while I was in business school, kind of had a really big focus on entrepreneurship and venture capital and trying to start companies out of the technology that was being developed at UCLA, whether it was in the engineering school or the medical school. And so UCLA prides itself on its entrepreneurship and its ability to take that technology and transfer it out into either industry or into startups. And so we kind of built this group, because at the time of business school, it wasn't really formalized per se. I mean, there was different pockets of it.
Okay.
But we built this group that was really interested in taking these ideas and really helping the professors move forward. And it kind of grew like really quick. So like our second year of business school, we had something like 50 interns at DC.
Was this a project that turned into this?
Yeah, it was kind of like just an idea that like everyone kind of signed up for. I think because they thought it was like, you know, like a core activity of the university and like they just all kind of signed up for it.
Right. They just like, yeah, you know what? This looks really cool. Yeah. I want to solve this problem. That's how the best things are created.
So we had 10 or so different like idea companies that we kind of divvied up to all the teams, and people were kind of working through those and seeing, you know, what it took to kind of commercialize those and if they were good ideas or not. And then ultimately from all that work, we kind of found 2 things. And one of those things we took to the business school competition, the business plan competition, and we tied for first place. So that was pretty cool.
Gotcha. So let's go back a bit. I want to learn as to why you went back to school to get an MBA.
Yeah.
Because that's a tough question for a lot of people. You know, some people feel like it might be a waste of time nowadays, or it might be extraordinarily valuable. Why was the reason that you went back originally?
So I had at DeVito, like one of the mini projects that I had gotten is we were starting to kind of play around with what's called like more like corporate venture capital or corporate VC. We didn't really have any formal program or anything in place, but it really interested me because I got to see all these new technologies. At the same point in time, for a big company, it's really hard for them to play in venture capital because they rather make the bigger, less risky investment later on than make the earlier risky investment and have outsized returns. I think that was one of the factors. The second factor was just always assumed at that time at DaVita, a lot of the people were all post MBA. And so it was kind of assumed because they're all from like the McKinsey, Bain.
Right.
Kind of
big consulting, big four. Yeah.
So it was kind of always just assumed that I would go back to business school. And so I just kind of got on that wave and just kind of continued to ride it. So,
I mean, what you just said sounded really fascinating to me, that a company like that, it felt it was very difficult to try to acquire something that early stage, and you wanted to work with more early stage firms. So why is it that you feel like these larger firms have trouble, or they just don't feel like it's worth the money or the time?
I think it's really that. It's your failure rate in early venture is 1 in 9 in 10 or 9 in 19 and 20. And so there's a lot of time and effort that's spent on that. And so there is this whole world of, corporate venture capital and where does that play, especially for really engineering and R&D heavy companies. Those companies tend to do a little bit better at the corporate VC because they kind of have that investment engineering kind of mentality, and versus some others that don't. And so it's just easier to acquire the established thing that's already cash flowing, because instead of having to invest off their own balance sheet, they can actually go and borrow against that, because the thing that they're acquiring
has assets
and has cash flow, right? So
connections are everything. In regards to an MBA, did you feel like you learned more through doing the actual classes or the people that you met while doing the MBA?
I think it's actually more kind of like in between, the summer internship and doing the work that we were doing. I think but again, it kind of depends on where you come into your MBA. So I had the benefit,
what age or
not so much your age, but the people that went into investment banking right out of undergrad and now are going back to their MBA, they know how to do financial analysis, PowerPoint and all that stuff, no big deal, right? So they kind of focus a little bit on the other things in business school. I think I learned more by kind of doing.
Me too. I'm a big proponent of that. For me, it's very difficult learning in theory. I love being able to go in to the dirt, see what's happening and try to really attack it from that. Otherwise, just I feel like you don't want to give as much to it as well. Let's say you have a project in school and it's all fun and good and you spend 3 weeks on it. Well, in a business, you need to spend months to grow it, and to really do the early stage stuff, and to work on each little thing. Yeah, you can delegate, and everybody loves delegating. Delegation is my favorite thing. But at the same time, it's really cool to learn every single part of the business and really try to be in the lifeblood of it.
No, 100%. And so in terms of business school, doing all that stuff was how I was learning. But I honestly think that I spent too much time doing that. We were trying to do DCF Ventures. We were trying to do a couple startups. We were doing X, Y, and Z. And
not enough internships?
Not enough time spent making better connections.
Oh, gotcha.
If I could do business school again, I would spend more time on connections and more time meeting more people. Not to say that I didn't.
No, I get it.
But that's where I would have spent more time, because in my mind, I was kind of racing to this hey, we need to create a business and we need to get that business profitable. We need to create something from that. And my good friend, who's now my brother-in-law, which is a fun story.
Oh, that's great. I want to hear that one later.
Which was always hey, you're trying to do this the hardest way possible with all these healthcare startups, right? We should be doing other easier things and whatnot. But I, at that point in my life, really wanted to make an impact on healthcare.
What made it hard to do those? Is it because there was patents that you needed? Was it because a lot of people were in the space, or that the capital required to be in that space is just so intensive?
All of the above. Healthcare is hard. And my hat is off to anyone that's being successful in healthcare.
Yeah, I've got a buddy in biomed. He's just the money that they spend, it is insane to be able to do. It's literally you just throw darts at a board, the largest board you've ever seen in your life. And eventually maybe one will hit and you'll make a lot of money. But other than that, there really isn't that much else. And then there's projects that can go on for years and they don't make any money. And they're just constant pits of,
Well, I mean, and it's really different too between diagnostics devices and pharma, right? So that biotech's hard. You can have a drug that's very successful up until the very final stage of the clinical trial, then fails.
Wow.
And you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars at that point, right? I had not tried my hand in biotech. I am not that smart. So we did a lot more stuff in like the services and devices and diagnostics.
Devices are great business, though. I've heard a lot of good things about that business. It's a little shady sometimes, but it's a very interesting business.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your experience in the med device sector and how you learned from doing that, why you wanted to go into medicine in the first place. Because was it because of the college experience that you had, or?
Yeah, no. Again, I think for me, like healthcare is like a direct impact on making people's lives better. Like you can tangibly see it. And then you can make that argument for a lot of different things. But in healthcare, you can tangibly see like the benefit that you're having on people. And so, yeah, we've made some investments in some of the different medical devices, and it's tough. You think that you have a really good winner, but for one reason or another, it's life and business, and things happen for a reason. And so I think that there's a lot of really good technology that's not getting out there. But at the same point in time, I think these barriers like the FDA and funding and whatnot are there for,
a reason.
A reason.
Yeah.
And so, where do you want to play in that game is an interesting.
Med device, is it very similar in regards to the amount of time and because I know in pharma it can take forever.
Yeah.
They're so rigorous. I'm assuming med device is very similar in regards to the.
No, actually a lot faster. I wouldn't say a lot faster, but generally speaking, a little bit faster.
Like from start to finish, what would that look like?
Yeah.
And like go to market versus starting, like
really good
what's
question.
That time period?
Totally depends on the device, but on average, you can get through a clinical trial in probably about a year and a half.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so you don't have to do kind of the 3 phases and the large numbers usually, depending on what the device is doing. So
right. And what type of device were you focused on?
Yeah, so there's a couple. One was an absorbable inferior vena cava filter. So let's say you get like a clot in your leg. That clot can move through your heart and then into your lungs and block your lungs and end up ultimately killing you. And so the standard of care were these metal filters that would be placed in your inferior vena cava, kind of
so
that
would
big
it just
vein.
like cut up the?
No, it would catch it.
It would catch it.
Yep.
Okay,
but
eventually it would stay there. Yeah.
Well,
so
it would stay there, and then your body would slowly absorb it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Now the problem is a metal filter, and the metal filter's got to come out, and so they don't always pull them out, and sometimes they like do bad things. And so a gentleman had invented this filter that was made out of absorbable stitches or absorbable suture,
like a stent type.
Yeah. So it would capture the clot would dissolve, and then the filter would dissolve.
Oh, that's
so there would be no need to go out and pull it back out. And so,
how did you raise capital for these companies? Because that fascinates me. Raising capital, everybody has a different way of doing it. Some people do friends and family. Some people go to pitch these large family offices.
Yep.
There's like a bunch of different ways to do it, to slice an apple.
Yeah.
But how did you do it when you were starting out, just got out of business school? You're like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah. So just to clarify, that absorbable filter was not my company. That was just something that we invested in early on. But yeah, it's a really good question. One that we're going through right now with our 2 startups. Do we go out and raise money? Do we bootstrap? There's very many pros and cons to each one of those. But again, I think it's really the connections that comes down to in terms of who's your network. Because you can spend a lot of time trying to go and pitch VCs and kind of get on that roadshow. But if someone knows someone who knows someone, put you in contact with someone, it's just like applying for a job, right? Your resume kind of goes to the top of the stack,
right?
Even with all the AI resume readers, right? You still kind of go to the top of the stack.
Your resume sort of goes. Yeah. It goes to the place where there's other resumes of other people that know other people, right? Like that is crazy though. You want to hear a cool story?
Yes.
So when I was trying to get into corporate, I wanted to break in and I had no way. Like I didn't do enough internships. Like I literally didn't do one internship in my undergrad. And what I did is I went on LinkedIn. All right. And I just said, you know what? Nobody can outwork me. I am going to do 100 LinkedIn connections a day.
Yeah.
I'm going to do 100 applications a day.
Yeah.
And then I'm also going to try to set up 5 to 10 coffee meetings every single week.
Yes.
And by doing that, I created these relationships and willed myself into that role. And I don't even know how it happened because it took a long time.
Yeah.
But by doing that, that's what it is. That's what building a company is too. It's creating the luck. Tell me how you got from I'm going to raise capital or going to start this business to, okay, this business is now running and rolling? Like, was it lead gen that really helped you doing that?
Yes.
Is it marketing? What was the best place to put your capital in that early stage?
Yeah. So interesting story. We basically decided not to go back to DaVita. We were going to kind of run with these two concepts that we had out of the medical school at UCLA.
Lee was your partner or somebody you met in MBA?
Different people that we met at MBA. Okay. So people who we won the business plan competition together. We're like, hey, we're going to make this happen.
At UCLA, nice.
Yeah, we're going to make this happen. We're going to do it. And so, ultimately those technologies ended up failing from a technology standpoint. And so we would have investors kind of lined up, and then we wouldn't be able to replicate it. And so we would have to cancel the investor meetings. Wow. And so basically, again, through just what you said, different connections, one of the professors that we got involved with at UCLA was also doing some work for the Brentwood School. I got invited to do kind of a pro bono project over there, a traditional consulting project. That led to another individual who had invested in the lead gen company. And he's like, hey, I have this investment in a lead gen company. I'd love for you to come take a look and look at the data. And
so is that how you met them at the Brentwood School?
Yeah.
Or from
from a pro bono consulting project.
Oh, that's so cool. So that one's Best Agents, right?
No, so that was before that. So that ultimately became known as higher education.
Okay.
But so higher education, so they hired me as a consultant from a pro bono consulting gig they had done at the Brentwood School.
That's so crazy.
Random connection.
And so you were one of the original founders of the company?
No. They were rolling and cranking. They brought me in as a hired gun. And
Gotcha.
So I was a consultant first, and then they had an office in Houston. And so that same gentleman who brought me in as a consultant convinced me to go full time. And so Nish and I got married. Then we moved to Houston for that company.
That's so crazy. Yeah. So you guys were both in LA, moved to Houston. Yep. So tell me a little bit about what you did at that firm.
Yeah.
I know it's lead gen oriented, but I'd love to get the meat. Really give me what was it that you started to improve? Because I know there was some dashboard work, there was some other work. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So basically, again, kind of going back to that data heavy focus, right? Mm-hmm. The question was how do we increase our revenue for every visitor that's coming to all the different websites? And so really kind of just breaking that funnel down and saying, okay, well, this is how many people are coming into the top of the funnel, and this is the result at the bottom of the funnel. And look, at every one of these steps, if we improve just a couple
what was the ratio from the top funnel to the bottom funnel? I know that's a long time ago to remember.
That's a good question. I don't want to quote a wrong number, but
I get it.
There was a lot of people in and a little bit on the outside.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's usually how it goes, right? Yeah.
So that was kind of the early work, and then that kind of just grew into a larger and larger role. Where
how did people get to? Sorry, I don't want to how did people get to the top of the funnel? What were usual avenues to get people to the top? Was it online? Was it what? Tell me about
so this company was 100% online search engine optimization company. So
it's an SEO company. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So if you Googled online MBA or online education, one of the websites of the company would usually show up, and
that's great.
So that was all at that point in time, all organic traffic.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Oh my God. So did you, at that time, because I know a lot of people nowadays, they create blogs or something to get to the top.
Yeah.
They create different things. How did you guys get to the top using SEO? What were your methods at the time? Because I know they're outdated now because everything's changed, but tell me a little bit about what you guys did at that time.
Yeah, so I don't think, it's funny. I mean, we can have a whole podcast on...
on just that, right?
On AI and SEO and GEO and EO, whatever they're calling it, right? I think, the same principles still kind of apply. And anyone that's kind of even looking at search in general, there's a really good Wikipedia entry called PageRank for Larry Page. So not about the page itself, but literally... Larry Page from Google.
Right.
And he basically published the article, and the way that Google works is all about academic papers citing other academic papers. And so if you think about that from a internet perspective, it's all about one website linking to another website.
Okay. Gotcha.
So it's all about academic paper citation. And then they were basically figuring out what were the most popular cited papers. And from that, you can kind of build a rank of the page based on that popularity of that paper.
That's interesting.
Rating.
Would you be able to rank higher if you were to put, let's say, a link to a website that gets a lot of traffic and you're a site that's smaller?
So kind of the other way around.
It would be the other way.
Right? So if you think about it, you're getting influenced by those sites that have a lot of others influencing that site. So, when one of the major news publications cites you, that's a really...
Oh, no, that's huge. Yeah.
It's huge, right? Because they have all these other people citing that website for that topic. And then when they cite you... So yeah, the page rank on Wikipedia is a really good read. I don't follow the really intense math at the bottom.
Yeah,
but
I can imagine.
The rest of it is a really good read. So and that's evolved over time. But even with AI today, it still comes down to like, where's the engine? Where are these chatbots getting their information from? And so it's again kind of a very similar concept.
I mean, the learning models that I've seen nowadays, it's so fascinating because I forgot that there was two different types of AI, the way that they learn. There's either a model that continuously learns, right? Or it just has a specific data set that's already in place, right? So the learning model is based off, that's how they were able to create DeepSeek. You've heard of DeepSeek, right? Like that whole crazy thing, how they did it for $5 million. I mean, that's insane to me. I can't even believe that they were able to do that when all these other models took hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like, are you like super AI?
I know enough to be dangerous, which is really dangerous.
That's good. That's really good. We'll talk a little bit about it afterward. Yeah. I'd love to hear more about it. And I think AI is incredible. We're all talking about it. Yep. Everybody is. I was in a group the other day that I join every so often. It's a weekly group, and we were just talking literally about AI solely and how it's impacting everything and all these new tools that are coming out. Different individuals in the group are actually creating their own AI tools.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. And I don't know, I think one of the most important things with AI is the data that's fed. It's not necessarily that, how is this computing going to be better or this or that. It's what data can it get its hands on, because ultimately, once you have strong data sets, you're off to the races. There's this whole data economy online that I've seen that is just crazy. But I'm getting off topic.
No, it's a really interesting point. But then if you apply that to like the corporate world, do you really want your corporate data training the model, but you want the model?
No, you don't. You don't. That's wrong. You want the model, but you don't want people taking your shit.
Right.
You don't want people taking your data because it's so valuable. I worked at CBRE, and we were building our own AI tools, and they didn't allow us to use AI.
Yes.
They wouldn't allow us to use it on our computers because they knew that they're taking all the data from this company.
Yeah.
And the thing is it's a value prop.
Yeah.
Because you're never not never. You could create a model that's very strong, but you need to have the lead developers. You need to have such grasp of information, and then you have to pay for the information at that point, right? And at what point is it better to just give them the information because they're going to get it from another firm, and then try to use these AI tools to stay competitive,
right? Versus
like ultimately going and saying, hey, you know what? Like, I'm not going to conform. I'm just going to use my own AI data sets and make sure that I create my own AI, and it's not going to be as good. It's just not worth your time.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, right? Do you build those tools on top of your own data, or do you like somehow hit the middle ground where you're using your own data, but you're letting the tool learn from others, right? And so there's a lot of those questions floating around right now.
I think the crazy thing is in 10, 15 years, I don't even think that there's going to be the economy the way it works now.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've kind of tried to grapple with. I know it's an annoying question. Nobody likes talking about, okay, then how are we even going to be able to create, how are people going to exchange goods for service when the AI can do most of those services? It's a dangerous place to be, especially with robots too, and then AI learning through robots.
Yeah. So two things on that. One, I'm seeing a pretty big shift in people's like acquisition focus. You have a lot of people who used to be in that digital world going back and buying service-based companies now.
Oh, I've seen that too, yeah. Like HVAC companies, plumbing, like that stuff is great. Like you can make so much money doing that because
now the multiples have gotten higher because everyone's trying to do it.
Yeah. I mean, Cody Sanchez was big on like throwing that out. Like all these big, YouTubers, they're all like, hey, you should a service-based business. And I'm like, you know what? That is so smart. But anyways, the thing that I find that's crazy is that a plumber can charge and make almost as much money now as a lawyer. Which is insane. But there's not enough plumbers, and we don't have enough of these individuals, so they can charge whatever they want.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a big thing. Like, so our last company, expertise.com, we basically did lead gen for service-based businesses. And like one of the things that we would see is that like service-based businesses only answer their phone about 50% of the time. So there's two reasons for that. One, one, if it's a small company, the guy's out or girl's out working, right, and can't answer the phone, or two, they're just already that busy, right? And so again, like, you know, just as you see here out in California, like it's hard to get a service technician to come out and like help the house. So I think that there's a huge opportunity in that market. One of the things that we were looking at is trying to buy those businesses is actually kind of a very tough process. You have sites out there like Biz Buy Sell and whatnot.
But there's not a lot on there, and it's very expensive. I've looked.
Yeah.
It's extraordinarily expensive to buy in these services.
Even when you go like one step deeper, it's usually
cold calling.
It's outdated data. Brokers like faxing you documents.
Are you talking about like Zoom Info or like
kind of. So
like these database platforms?
Yeah. So you're getting all this data, you're getting NDAs, and so I think that and someone's going to do this. I think that there's a really big opportunity to like streamline the buying of service-based businesses in the US.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, like, I think in general, anybody who's trying to find a business nowadays, it's not a great process. It's super complicated. Everybody makes it difficult. It's not like streamlined like it is when you go buy real estate, and they're very similar things. Like you go on LoopNet, you can look it up. There's all the data points. It's very well, done. But the thing is there's somebody paying for that. The realtor pays for that. A lot of these individuals, in the commercial space, because that's where I had a lot of my experience. You're paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for CoStar, which is, associated with LoopNet. And that's how they're able to grow these platforms. But with the Biz Buy Sell and those types of platforms, it's a lot harder to do that because they're not really charging the businesses that much to be able to post these listings. It's a one-time transaction. But the business brokers, they're not paying the same amount of money that, CoStar gets. It's pretty crazy.
It's a really good point. And I hadn't thought about it from that side of like where the money's coming from. Right. But I think that you're going to see that happen.
Have you ever bought off a Biz Buy Sell? I'm sorry, I don't want to.
No, I've looked at a lot of things, but I haven't been successful because usually what happens is by the time you get to like down to the financials, like
it's not what it was. So they completely misquoted them.
So I think that's where the real opportunity is. All of these small businesses, like getting, like you said, right, with the real estate, like the property taxes, like all this data is there, right? Can you get that data in a way that's presentable to a potential buyer?
Now I see what you mean with AI.
Yeah.
Because if you can utilize AI to scrap all of this data, you can scrap all this data together, and then basically you can go to these individuals and say, hey, I know you're making X. I know you're doing X. This is what I propose. And maybe you can get a profit share in the company, ownership portion. Then we'll bring in our management, our ability, make it X times bigger because we're acquiring 10 people. Look, your business is going to go out of business if we do, And I hate that. I love when people are able to do these small businesses, but at the same time, that's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's really cool. And I love that you were able to promote those businesses with expertise.com.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how that even got started. Like, where did that come from?
Interesting story. Again, not one of my creations. So the same company that was at higher education, the same group of investors had seeded expertise back in 2014. Or maybe 2015, and then it basically wasn't performing as they wanted to, so they kind of put it on mothballs. And then in 2019, the investor base was like, hey, it's actually starting to show some life again in Google. And so they put some money in, bought one of the corporate partners out, and tapped me to basically reboot it. And so
that's cool.
Yeah. So
were you like the lead gen head?
Well, when we got started, it was a little bit of an unfair start because we had ranking already in Google for some of the different industries. We just really expanded that. And so we built out more industries. And then the initial call center was actually to outreach to these different people that we had said, hey, look, based on all your reviews, based on all the criteria that we've looked for, you're one of the best plumbers in Los Angeles, for example.
Would you cold email? Was that
we would email, and we'd also call.
I love that.
Yeah.
Calling is so much more effective.
Yeah. So we would call and email. And I think that the two of them together, it's just another brand reinforcement, right? Because they may not answer the phone, but they hear the voicemail, and then they see the email. And so I think those things are very powerful. And then we can talk about text messaging nowadays too, which I think is also another really big component. So we grew that. We built a lot of links back to expertise.com. And then we started tracking all these outbound clicks to all the different service providers and all the different, then we started tracking all the calls from our site to the service providers.
Oh, that's cool.
And so
for follow-ups and everything through CRM.
Well, we figured it out pretty quickly. It's like, hey, look, literally 50% or less of the businesses that have people who actually want something, were actually answering their phone. Added to the call center and gave them a new job, which is basically like, hey, if the service provider doesn't answer the phone, ask the consumer or the client if they would like to talk to another available plumber. And so that, in essence, became kind of our concierge service.
Oh.
Where if you called the first plumber, we'd try to get them involved and try to get them on the line. But if they weren't available, we'd go back and say, hey, Franklin Plumbing is now, would you like to talk to Franklin Plumbing? Because the other plumber's not answering the phone. And a lot of times the person would say yes. And so we would get that concierge visit to come out. And
that's really cool. Pet Coverage AI. I love it. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing now within that, and how you came up with it.
Yeah. So really, we were looking at to back up, I'm kind of in this transition period after the acquisition of expertise by Forbes Advisor. And so we created basically a company called Idea Venture Studio. And so out of this venture studio, we were looking at different ideas of things that we could build into businesses.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so in having some of those conversations, I kept hearing this kind of concept that, hey, people who are in insurance have done pretty well for themselves. There was another conversation we had about my son's, one of his best friends, he's 4, one of his best friend's mother is actually a veterinary oncologist.
Oh, wow.
And so we were talking and she's like, yeah, David, by the time these pet parents get to me, and I, have to unfortunately tell them that there's a $15,000 procedure ahead of them, they're surprised to know that even though they had insurance, their insurance only covers $5,000 a year.
Right.
And so I was shocked by that. And so those two things kind of together, we started investigating. And sure enough, there's a lot of insurance policies out there where the annual limit's only $5,000 and doesn't really cover, things that they should in the pet world. And so we ran some tests and we were able to acquire customers that were interested in securing pet insurance. And so
do you guys, is it your own pet insurance? Do you guys get insured and licensed through?
PetCoverage.ai is actually a brand of Coverage Clarity.
Okay.
And CoverageClarity.com is our company that is now a national licensed broker.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, but we don't actually issue our own insurance policies. We're helping users find one of the best ones out there. So if you come to petcoverage.ai and answer a few questions, we'll put together a quote for you basically pretty quick. So yeah, it's been really fun, really exciting. We're actually the team is actually headed to Chicago next week to attend the AHA conference, as they call it, the American Association of Animal Hospitals. And so we're going to go out there and meet with a lot of vets. We've kind of built a product that allows vets and vet techs and pet sitters and day walkers and anyone really to help promote the Pet Coverage.ai brand and get paid for helping promote the brand.
That's so cool. I think that's great that you guys are spreading this message to everybody, because at the end of the day, it's like your pets are just like you. They're living beings, and you want to make sure that you're helping them and making sure that they're covered. So I'm glad that's going on.
Yeah, it's really, really important that people, like, there's a lack of education. Only about 4% of the pets in the US are insured.
Really? Wow. I would not believe it's that low.
Yeah, and it's growing about 20 to 25%. It's a huge growing industry because vet prices are going up.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to think about, I need to insure my pet for, cancer. But it's really what happens when the pet, eats something they shouldn't or has another kind of, just normal life experience. And so we try to do a lot on petcovers.ai and education, and have a really cool interactive calculator that kind of shows you what the costs are, what are the major kind of components of your insurance.
I like that.
Yeah. So if you go to petcovers.ai, go up to the top on pet insurance, and you find the pet insurance true cost calculator. That's pretty cool. A lot of people
really cool. I like that tool because it's like when you go buy a home, you're looking at a mortgage calculator. Super helpful. Everybody should do that. Yeah. You should do this too. That's so interesting. Are you guys one of the first to come up with this type of?
I don't know. We've had a lot of positive feedback, even from the carriers. They're like, "Hey, we really like what you guys are doing on this education front." Just again, because, vet costs are getting more expensive and more people are starting to insure their pet. So yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
I think this is incredible. Thank you so much for coming on.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
This is a blast.
Yeah.
And you guys tune in. He's got some incredible stuff that you can learn from. I mean, the pet coverage AI, that sounds so cool. You got to get your pets covered. Oh, looking forward to next time having you on. You got to come back soon.
Play chess next time.
Yeah, I know, right?